It's time to talk about poker machine harm reduction. Our next guest has spent a lifetime campaigning against the harms caused by poker machines. Reverend Tim Costello is Chief Advocate for the Alliance for Gambling Reform. And today, he's penned an open letter to Tasmania's Premier in support of promised poker machine pre-commitment cards. If you're a regular listener to Mornings, you would know that on a significant number of occasions, we have talked about these pre-commitment cards. We talked about the former Treasurer Michael Ferguson's championing of them. We asked him in every interview if they were still happening, and he said yes. As long as I'm Minister, they will be happening. Michael Ferguson resigned from the front bench a couple of months back now, and questions about what that will mean for these poker machine pre-commitment cards. To explain simply, a card that you would have needed to play a poker machine in pubs, in clubs, in casinos in Tasmania. You'd register for the card. It would have your identity on it. It would also carry the money that you use to gamble. You couldn't have a second one. And then if you lost more than $100 a day, $500 a month, or $5,000 a year, well, that just wouldn't be possible. It was nation leading, but it looks like the government may be walking away from it. The Reverend Tim Costello has written a letter to the Premier saying, please stick with the policy of mandatory pre-commitment cards. Tim Costello joins us in the studio this morning. Good to see you again.
So good to see you again, Leon.
We've caught up a lot of times over the years, almost every case talking about gambling harm. For people that are new to this story, Tim, can you please explain how you see the significance, if it were introduced, of this mandatory poker machine pre-commitment card? How significant was it nationally?
What's happening in Tasmania is extraordinarily significant nationally. It would be the first state to have this card. Now, Crown Casinos, 3,000 pokies, was forced by a Royal Commission to have the mandatory card. I've done a tour with the CEO of Crown Casino Melbourne, and it is working. It is protecting gamblers. In New South Wales, the Crime Commission, the Police Commissioner, the AMA, all said we have to have a cashless card to protect people from harm and from crime, because what happens is your suburban regional crims, when they've stolen hot goods from our home or they're selling ice to our kids, they clean up through the pokies. And the New South Wales Crime Commission said billions of dollars of dirty money going as cash through the pokies. So you can say to the police, my unexplained wealth had happened with the pokies. And it's a long history, Leon. You might remember I had a sibling called Peter Costello, and in 1999, as Treasurer, he commissioned the first productivity commission into gambling, 1999. Its recommendation, a mandatory pre-commitment card, a cashless card. Kevin Rudd became Prime Minister. He recommissioned a productivity inquiry into gambling, 2013. It recommended a cashless card. But at every step along the way, it keeps getting defeated because of the power of the pokies industry. They capture politicians.
I'm not sure in the Tasmanian context if money laundering is a significant factor, is as significant a factor as the fact that so much of the money that is lost into poker machines is simply lost into poker machines by people who are addicted and can't afford to lose that money. What role would this poker machine pre-commitment card play in that case? So if it's not about cleaning up organised crime, stopping money laundering, if it's about that, how effective?
No, you're totally right. I should have added that it's one arm of it was the money laundering and crime. But the other major arm, and you absolutely went to it, is actually addressing the fact that the Productivity Commission inquiries into gambling found that 63 cents of every dollar going through a machine is coming from someone hurting themselves, addicted, doing harm. The ripple effect is domestic violence. The ripple effect is preying on people who are in financial distress. So that's why the Sydney Morning Herald just yesterday, again in its editorial, urged the Minns government to do the cashless card. But the power of the industry absolutely runs these lines. Oh, no, we want a voluntary card. Well, a voluntary card's as useful as voluntary brakes in a car. It was trialled, a voluntary card in Victoria, and it totally failed. The industry says, and you'll hear politicians like the Labor shadow gambling minister, I think, saying this yesterday, facial recognition.
What's the problem with facial recognition? If you have facial recognition, people have registered themselves as problem gamblers. It creates the opportunity for venues to exclude those people if they've nominated themselves as problem gamblers. What's the issue with facial recognition?
Facial recognition only deals with people at the great extremity where they've done huge damage to their lives, so much damage that then they act. Most people will not ever register themselves. I might have too many drinks at a night. I'm not going to actually admit to anyone I'm drinking too much. Gambling is worse. You know, we have responsible service of alcohol, and you can see when someone's inebriated and they step in. Nobody steps in with a person who's sitting in a pokies venue because there's no obvious signs. And that's the big gap here. That's exactly why this card that sets limits and locks you out before you're in front of the hypnotising machines is so important.
What have you told the government? You've published an open letter today that's being delivered to Jeremy Rockliff, the Premier, and who was ultimately responsible for, reversing a ministerial directive which Michael Ferguson actually issued and still is current with the Gaming Commissioner. The Gaming Commissioner is still working as if this card is coming into play in Tasmania. What have you told the Premier?
We've told the Premier, don't really be cowed by these powerful vested interests. The Prime Minister was here yesterday, and because he may squib banning all sports betting ads, his lines has been it's pokies doing the damage. Now, I notice he didn't say anything about the Labor position down here, but pokies are absolutely doing the damage. So we have the greatest losses and harm in the world, and it's because we have 75% of the world's pokies in pubs and clubs. Elsewhere, pokies are in casinos. It's destination gambling. Here they're so accessible, they're doing the damage.
Okay, and we've got listeners saying, well, hang on a second, won't people just go to online gambling? I still say, and this is from a separate texter, I still say betting apps on phones can be much more detrimental to people's financial status. You can do it anywhere. All you need on these phones. All these poker machine lobbyists are not focused there as they know they'll never ban this, unlike the state's poker machines. That's from Rob this morning. What's your response?
Well, we actually have international evidence that where there has been the introduction of the cashless card, and always had it since 2017, it doesn't go to online betting. It simply isn't substitution. And the reason is that venues like pubs are also an occasion where you go out socially, you're going to have a meal, you're also then going to play the pokies. It is a profoundly different form of gambling to online with an app. There isn't substitution. It does not flow, if you have a cashless card, to other forms, and that's international evidence, overwhelming.
It was interesting that the Tasmanian Hospitality Association came out and said as many as 50% of their venues might be threatened with this, or their survival might be threatened if this card comes into place. One might ask what that says about who it is that's losing money if you stopped people that lose more than $100 a day coming in. But you also might ask for people that like to go and spend $20 or $30 on a night out with mates or with family or by themselves. Won't this be a barrier to entry for them that is unfair for poker venues?
So Crown Casino under the Royal Commission was ordered to introduce the cashless card. They protested, saying this will be a barrier. When I did the tour of Crown Casino, which has 3,000 pokies now with the cashless card, so you've got about 2,500 across the state. No queues. You international guests, all locals, just show their licence. They're issued a card. Absolutely seamless. So
does their money sit on the card?
Yeah.
So when you get this card, your money sits on it?
You have to load up your money on that card. So, you have to set limits. You have to set a time and lock yourself out.
But the difficulty then is rolling that out statewide. So let's think of Victoria. You've got Crown Casino. We've got the Country Club and the casino at Rest Point. But the issue then is running it across different ownership models so that if I have a big win at Crown, I could then potentially walk out to another venue and claim that win. Do you agree that that's a complexity that'll be hard to implement?
Yeah, so the cashless card will be rolled out to all pokies venues across Victoria. The only thing that has been slowing that down, and the government's committed to that, is New South Wales. They're saying Albury, Wodonga, what if, on one side you don't have it? But it's going to happen in Victoria. Tasmania is historic because it's the first. Jenny Cranston, your gaming commissioner, has been working on this for 2 years.
Hello, Jenny Cranston. We'd like you to come on the radio sometime soon. She's been very good in the past, obviously working in a changing environment, but it's been great when she's been part of Mornings.
She's very principled, and I say this will not cost jobs. So let me give you one figure, Leon. We have researched that $1 million spent just on hospitality, 20 jobs. $1 million spent on retail, 10 jobs. $1 million going through pokies, less than 2 jobs. Pokies are a jobs killer. And of the 370 alcohol licences in Tasmania, only 90 have pokies. And they've already had super profits. They got individual licences. They've been reaping 40 to 60% higher since their individual pokies licences. For them to now be blocking this and the harm it's doing to Tasmanians is outrageous.
I'll be interested in how Deloitte handled this report. So the government have commissioned Deloitte, who are one of the big consulting firms, to do a report on what the economic cost of implementing this card might be in Tasmania. My understanding is, and I've talked to some people who work in consulting, they say that whenever gaming comes up, these accounting firms are reluctant or very careful about getting involved. I know some cynically are suggesting the fix is in. This Deloitte report is designed to get the government and the gaming industry the outcome it wants. The people I spoke to said Deloitte might be quite careful about how they present this because there is a reputational issue attached. It'll be interesting to see what Deloitte finds.
Deloitte's know that pokies are now like smoking and tobacco, and they will have to be very careful. It's on the nose. We know the damage it does. We know that we have the greatest losses and harm per capita in the world. Look, what worries me is there isn't a social audit report. Why didn't the Premier, who commissioned Deloitte's with very limited terms, which would be as easy as saying, well, selling more cigarettes is good for the economy.
So will it look at the opportunity cost of what would have happened if that money had been spent in other places in the community?
Exactly. We know that when pokies are in a community, it's much harder for other small businesses because there's only so much discretionary money. And if it's going through pokies, it's not going into those other small businesses that create jobs.
Tim Costello, it's always good to see you. Thank you for coming in and being part of Mornings this morning.
A pleasure. Thanks, Leon.
Reverend Tim Costello, Chief Advocate for the Alliance for Gambling Reform. You're on Mornings around Tasmania.